head coach Pat Noonan this morning ahead of Saturday's game against Philadelphia. Carter, you want to start us off?
Good morning.
Morning.
Roman Solentano was announced to received a call up to the U.S. men's national team for this window. What did you think of that call up, and how exciting is that for Roman?
That's great for Roman. I think he's had a really strong year, consistent play, and at a pretty crucial time, he's going to be called into a national team camp. So hopefully he can go show well there and improve his standing.
Is there something you think he's done this year that maybe has improved his standing so much that he's gotten this call up at this point in time?
I think decision making. I'm always probably too critical. I have good conversations with him and Paul, and what we could do better to give him options, what he can see. But the shot stopping's been there. The consistency's been there. I think his kicking and seeing what's ahead of him, different layers to what's ahead of him, and how to distribute the ball has improved. And I still think he's pushing to get even better. So I think probably the growth in that area has helped him to to take the next step and put himself in the conversation with the U.S. team.
This weekend, it's obviously a big match for the table. It's a big match against the top team in the East. What are you expecting out of Philly this weekend, and how have they maybe changed or not changed since the last time you saw them?
Expect a very intense game, physical game, fast-paced game. They've been consistent with play, results, in good form, and it's a good challenge. I think defensively, when you just look at the eye test and then the actual data, they're one of the more aggressive teams, if not the most aggressive team, with how they step to the ball. With the ball, I think there's been a good balance of when teams are stepping up, how they'll play direct, but how they'll play through, how they'll play around. They can still move the ball. I think their combination play with one touch, two touch to be able to break pressure and really run at speed to goal has been evident. And when teams aren't stepping up, they can move the ball. They can get the ball into wide areas and be very efficient with how they can get service into the box and runs in front of goal.
I know you guys have bigger goals than just making the playoffs, but there are scenarios where you guys could clinch on Saturday. What would that mean to do it at this stage in the season, and is that something you guys talk about?
While it's not the goal just to get in the playoffs, I still think it's a credit to the guys at this stage to potentially make that a reality. We won't worry about other teams and scenarios. We have to focus on our play and specifically performing better at home. That hasn't been the case in recent weeks. So that's our focus. But if we're able to perform the way we'd like and get a result, then that's certainly a positive. It's hard to year after year after year be a playoff team. I think that's the history and the data will show that, but that's been our expectation, and I hope that becomes a reality soon here. And again, that's credit to the consistency of those guys on the field.
You guys have 3 of your new players in training this week. I guess, how are they looking, and how are they in terms of availability? Like, are they to a point?
Yeah.
I know, like, Brenner obviously has been here before. Dominic was in league at least. Like,
Right.
How difficult would it be to kind of throw them into a match right away?
I don't think it would be too difficult because of kind of how they've looked. I think they're all in a little bit of a different stage of fitness, having played games, obviously, with Dom, being at Salt Lake and having Leagues Cup games, some league minutes as well. But he's in a rhythm that, all of our guys are too. It's just a matter of game fitness. So I feel comfortable putting him in there with Brenner coming out of the preseason and looking at the minutes and how a natural progression of early preseason games to, working his way up to, I think it was 75 minutes. And just what you see from training, he's been very sharp and come with a really good intensity about him. with Ayub, he's probably the one that we have to be the most mindful of because he's been on his own for, the better part of the last month. So if you just look at the last couple of days, some good training moments. I think physically looked strong, but we also just have to understand where he's at. So that one they're all available, and we'll just try to make sure that we have a pretty good plan of what the max minutes looks like so that we can understand how we could utilize them if that's the case. But they've all been very good this week.
I know last week it wasn't official yet, so we haven't really talked to you about those additions. But with Brenner specifically, just obviously the way he left was
Yep.
a little contentious. How did he kind of build back trust with you and the organization to be able to be back in the building here?
A little bit of the communication in the period of time from when he left, and maybe understanding some, immaturity or wrongdoing. He was, he reached out in a good way, and then had been following us the whole time. And when we had a conversation, it was, this is where we're at. This is what the expectations are, and he's familiar with the club and myself and Chris, and we can forgive. And I think we got to that place with hopefully the expectation of this is how you have to come in to be a part of this group in this moment, and we'll see from there. And the first week has been promising. I know this is still early stages, and you always want to have a good second impression, and we've seen that, but we just have to go day by day and see if we can continue to push him along the right way to understand how to be a part of this team and go from there. So that's kind of how it led to this, and we also had the option to bring a really talented piece at a crucial moment that knows the club and knows us, like I said. So we felt it was a good decision in the moment.
Yeah, just kind of go back to the theme of the season. This team doesn't, has mentally strong, doesn't lose 2 games in a row. Now they're facing the biggest game of the regular season so far. Just talk about their mindset and how they'll do.
The guys can overcome adversity, and when I say adversity, you're going to lose games. You're going to have bad performances. Nobody gets too, emotional or erratic. Of course, there's frustration when you don't play well on an individual and collective level. So there's always going to be moments, and it's up to players and coaches to manage that and make sure that we come out of it in a good way. And so that's why I feel confident that when we aren't at our best or when we don't get a result, how it looks with our training week and the preparation, guys can figure things out to bounce back quickly. So this will be another great challenge after a disappointing performance and loss. So hopefully we have that same level of bounce back that we've seen previously.
Pat, on Philly, you talked a little bit about their ability to step to pressure and apply pressure on the defensive side of the ball, and I wanted to get your thoughts on how the combination of Glesnes and Macania, I don't mean to mispronounce his name, how they're able to effectively work as a tandem and what they provide as a challenge.
Both strong on the ball and playing under pressure. I think both also have a good sense of how to eliminate risk and, play forward in ways that it allows their attacking, that front line to run a channel or to challenge for a direct ball. I've worked with Jacob. His ability to advance with the ball is very good. So understanding the angles of pressure to break that pressure, we have to be mindful of. Plays a good ball over distance, so he can see different passes, good range of passing. But the two of them together, I think, are very good at reading and working off of each other, reading plays, knowing how to step off the line, knowing how to cover for each other, physical presence with both of them. So they've been very strong together, and certainly a big part of their defensive success, but also with the ball and how they initiate their attacks.
I'm struck by Philly when I take a step back and I was looking at some of the preseason predictions for the year, looking at the playoff picture and what some people were saying, especially with MLSsoccer.com, for example. I'm not trying to pick on that specific thing or that website or anything, but had them, Philly projected as being in 12th place or 13th place in the league, and obviously they're not at this point in the season.
Yeah.
Why is it, do you think they've been able to maybe surprise or defy expectations, and what is it that's really stood out about them this year that maybe people weren't expecting going into the season?
Yeah, I think that's why the predictions mean nothing. That's what people are going to do to drive conversation and give their opinion on the current state of a group with a coach, with players, with movement, all that stuff. So it means nothing. They've been very good all year, and it's because I think Bradley's come in and in a challenging moment, got them to a place where even after maybe the initial preseason, we played them in preseason. I think we beat them, and they've progressively gotten better. And there's a lot of players in that locker room that have been a part of successful teams prior. So they're built to be able to figure things out and have success. You mentioned Jacob, Kai, Andre, Alejandro. There's a lot of pieces in that group that have had a lot of success in previous years. So this is not new to them. And overcoming, adversity similar to how we've done it in different times and how we just talked about, that's nothing new to them. So, I'm sure they didn't care for the predictions. And, most people don't pay too much attention to it. If it's motivation, great. But you know what you have internally, and you know what you have to do to improve. And they've done a good job of that.
Going back to Dom, what stands out about him? And I understand he kind of played more of a midfield and maybe forward role with RSL. So how does he fit into kind of how you envision him using him here?
Just the physical data, I think, and how we thought he could step into our group from, a wider area was something that stood out. But the technical side of his game and playing under pressure, how he could get, passes into the box, not just with wide service, which I think he has a good vision and a good, range of putting crosses into the box, but how he's able to break pressure and dribble inside. There was a lot of characteristics and qualities that we thought could be, beneficial to us. With the Polish, youth teams, he's played as a right wing back, so he has experience there. And talking with, people on their side coming from Salt Lake, how often was he working on the left? And it wasn't a ton, but he had some time spent there as well. So you just try to gather the information and see, with our own conversations with Dom and people around him, how we think we can unlock certain things. And on the physical side, certainly a lot of things stood out, but then just from the technical side, tactically, how he would fit in. And, it's been a couple days. I try not to get too excited or too down on guys based on a couple performances, but he stood out in a really good way. And in timing of his runs, I think that part has put him into some good spots with new players, new teammates that, he's still trying to figure out. But like I say, you put, players with a good IQ into any environment, and they can kind of stand out and figure things out. And that's what we've seen early on with Dom. So, it's been a good. There's been good early signs to, what we can expect.
And then with Luca being back in training this week, is he back to full go then?
He's available.
And
he's full go. Today's is probably his first full training. He was involved, but there's no issues as of this conversation to his availability.
And then how's Miles and then Brad also? I know you had said he had tightness.
Yeah. Miles, hopefully next week, available. Brad, unfortunately, has picked up a pretty significant injury, and it was a shock to himself and all of us with his hamstring, because he was able to play for a significant amount of time with it. And so timeline that's in the 2-month range as of right now. So again, give or take, but that's kind of what we've been told, and we have to gather some more information. But it's unfortunate news for Brad.
Yeah, we were talking with Roman yesterday about his national team call-up, and I was asked who are some of the guys he might be excited to meet with, and one of them was Matt Freese, because he had met Matt at a camp at Philly when he was in college, and he said that was the first time he'd ever met you as well at that camp.
Yeah.
Do you have any recollection of that first meeting with Roman? And if you do, is there anything you could share about what you remember from that time?
He trained with the Union for a week, and that was kind of set up through Todd Yeagley at the time, his college coach, and we have a good relationship. But and with Phil Wedden, it was, let's see if we can get him in the environment and see what he looks like. And he stood out for obvious reasons with the shot stopping. Sometimes you're thrown into this new environment, and there's it's a win-win. You're not signing a contract. You're just trying to go in and train with a professional team. And his composure, and I remember a small-sided moment or a block of time was pretty evident, and it kind of raised some eyebrows. And so he had a really good week, with our group, and a lot of similarities to Matt. Matt is a very good shot stopper. At that time was continuing to progress and perform behind Andre, and continuing to work on his decision making, and so a lot of similarities with the two. And I think I saw something where Roman said Matt was looking after him, and that's kind of how Matt is. He could see it as competition, a threat, but he just tried to help a new face feel comfortable. So, that's what I remember.
Thank you.
All right.
Pat, thanks very much.
Thanks.